Oh yeah.
Yes.
Hope you and yours are good.
No, me and mine, we are very good. I hope yours are very good as well. The kids are okay.
By the mercies of the Lord, we are good.
Amen. I'm going to ask you to wear your headphones. I want to play something for you.
Okay.
Because the moment I realized that we had secured your booking, I said I need to play something for the president and the citizens first. So why don't you just take a listen. Let's see how long it takes before you throw out your headphones.
Come on.
I thought it was important to start. I mean, you're the first Arsenal fan that I've had since
my
Manchester United
goodness.
beat Arsenal.
Don't cause heartaches.
So I thought it's a good place to start from, because I remember the last time that you and I spoke. I think it was it last year? It must have been last year. I think you were very close to winning many trophies, and I remember saying to you, "Do you think it's going to happen?" And you said, "Yeah, I'm very confident it's going to happen." It obviously didn't happen. So I'm going to ask you again this year: are you, just a few more months before the season ends, are you confident Arsenal's going to win?
I am confident. You see, the consistency with which Arsenal has played this season has been very unique. And the last time I saw this kind of consistency was way back around the years 2004, 2005, when we were at our very peak. And the consistency has bounced back. So this year, I think, will be different. This season will be different. I'm crossing my fingers, Gucci.
Well, if it happens, I'll be the first one to send you a text in. I believe it's in August, because I think the season ends actually in May.
No,
season ends in May, so I'll be the first one to send you a text.
I'm waiting
if it does happen.
Let's go.
So you've been busy, because again, like I said, our team has been trying to get a hold of your teams, try and secure this booking. I think from early January. You obviously have had a few by-elections, Chawama, Kasama. I just want, very quickly, maybe you can just give me and listeners out there, just your impression of the party's performance in those two by-elections.
I will tell you that the party has made tremendous progress. For us, we have cemented our structures by participating in those by-elections. We may not have won and had our mayor or member of parliament in the house, but we have won in several ways. In that, when you recall, in 2021, in Chawama, we only managed to get 200 votes. In the by-election, we got 1,530. So for us, that's a gigantic lead. And we know that going into the elections in August, the situation will be very different, given the fact that the spirit governing a by-election and that governing a general election are variants. The same thing can be said about Kasama, where we only had about 300 votes. And now we had 4,405 votes. That is a gigantic leap. And clearly the people are listening to us. They are listening to our messages. And we just have to keep on pushing. We also are happy, Luchi, that evidently so, in the last two by-elections, I think it has come to the fore that in this country now there's a third force. People have got options. They've got an option. If they can't fall on the two traditional political parties that they have known, there is now a new kid on the block, and that's the CF. That has been out of sweat. And so we are happy that we are going in the general election with numbers accumulating on our side, going in the general election with a lot of enthusiasm to do even better.
You and a certain minister, you've been going back and forth. Well, I don't know if I don't know how much back and forth there has been going, but there've been a couple of shots here and there by one particular minister, the Minister of Information. He's thrown a couple of things your way. You've thrown a couple of things in the other direction. Do you think that's a sign that, like you said, that the third force is in the back of certain people's minds, and it does worry them a little?
Yeah, I think so. I think they are getting worried and they're getting very anxious about it all. Clearly, they have seen that the Citizens First is on the rise. The people are paying attention to us more often than not. And so when I see the Honorable Minister of Information trying to demean me and the CF, it doesn't worry me at all. It just shows that we have caught the attention of the powers that be, And they have realized that they no longer can be in the comfort zone. I mean, why would you be talking about something that is not important? Why would you be throwing stones at a tree without fruits? Definitely it's because the fruits are blossoming and there's jealous all over. So it is as MC Wabweno-san, a PhD, bring him down. But that's not working.
Okay. I also want to ask you about alliances, because obviously I was telling one presidential candidate for another political party. I was saying that alliances seems to be the buzzword, and has been the buzzword over the past 3-4 years. Going into the election in August, are you standing on your own, or is there still a conversation that maybe you're having with others to say, listen, maybe we can just all form together and just have one candidate rather than having a very segmented field?
I will tell you for a fact that the Citizens First has always believed that there is unity in numbers, there is unity in diversity, but we have been in alliances before, as you know, which we were in UCA. In fact, ourselves, President Savoy Mbola and others were about the first ones that started UCA with the late President Edgar Lungu. UCA did not work. After spending 1 year, 3 months in there, we realized that the growth trajectory of our party had gone down. And we said maybe it's high time that we should focus on building our party and seeing how well we can harness it. Like you've seen, we are making tremendous growth as a political party. Now, we believe that alliances should work, but these are mutual alliances that should operate. Already now, as a party, Citizens First, we are working with NDC, we are working with RDC, and so for us as Citizens First, we are available to work with alliances that are progressive, alliances that are going to fulfill the ultimate goal, that is service delivery to the people of Zambia. Alliances should never be about individual survival. It should be about service delivery to the people of Zambia, and that's why, having been in UCA, and having had experience coming from the past with the interaction we had with other opposition parties, we now know that we have to be very careful and tread very carefully as we go in, because we are remaining with, strictly speaking, only 5 months before the election.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So 5 months before the election, a lot of people would like to hear from political parties, whether it's alternative views, alternative policies that they have if they do take over office. And that's one of the things that I want to talk to you about this morning. Beginning first of all, so if we look back, where there's a lot of debt in this country, and because of that debt, there are things that need to be done. We find ourselves in a situation now where there has been some forgiveness of some of this debt. There has been a restructuring of the debt, sorry, not forgiveness, but there has been a restructuring of the debt, which puts us in a better position than we were 4 years ago. In terms of yourself and some of your policies, what are those policies that you can say will take us to the next level, considering where we find ourselves today in terms of some of the restructuring that's happened?
As a people, is the mining sector that God has given us. The mines, if properly harnessed, can answer a lot of challenges that Zambia is going through. But I think we've been lazy dealing with the mining sector. We have gold all over the place. We have diamonds, we have emeralds, we have copper, we have cobalt. And yet we have not taken time to harness these minerals to our advantage. That needs to be helped. Small-scale mining, or should I say artisanal mining, is propelled by poverty. It is pushed. People are pushed to go into artisanal mining because they have to make ends meet. But when you go in the bush, because it requires you to stay in the bush a lot, and when you go in the bush for some time, then you all of a sudden you are called an illegal miner. I mean, it demotivates the citizenry. People like that need to be encouraged. The fact that they are not going to break people's homes and they have chosen to go and create a living for themselves out there, I think is reason enough for them to be supported. Instead of calling them illegal miners, I think when we come into government ourselves, we would rather sit down with them, train them, give them an opportunity to understand the pros and cons of mining illegally, so that they get to understand that it is important for them to mine in an environment that is conducive. To go and use ways like we'll exterminate, we are going to remove them by force, like has happened in our country here today, is sad. Because small-scale miners, like we have seen in Ghana, they have been playing a very pivotal role in terms of the economic growth. We can do that in this country if we can just empower those small-scale miners. Because what it will mean is that government will also begin raising a lot of revenue as a result of having more artisanal miners in there. And I speak because I'm a miner myself. I'm a small-scale miner. So I know the challenges that small-scale miners go through. I know the challenges that artisanal miners go through. And what they need is help. If we give them help, even the money that we are going to borrow from the IMF, because the money is in Zambia. What we just don't have is a leadership that can harness that natural resource. If properly harnessed, Zambia doesn't need to borrow money from the IMF or the World Bank.
And how is that if? Because I think sometimes it's easy to say they're illegal miners, what we need to do is A, B, C, D. But then again, there's a reason, I don't want to call them illegal, but there's a reason why people don't want to legalize. You don't want to pay taxes, you don't want to pay NAPSA, you don't want to pay all of the statutory requirements, you don't want to register the business, and if it's a corporation, you don't want to register a corporation. So what do you do to convince people to not be, and I'm going to put it in air quotes, illegal, but to be legal?
That is why any government, the job of any government is to help its citizenry. That's the job of government. When you find that your citizens are afraid to register their businesses, it simply means that you as a government is being defrauded of revenue collection. Why are people not trying to register their businesses? Because probably the environment is prohibiting. The taxes are beyond the roof and they can't afford it. That is why it is important for government to ensure that they create an enabling environment. Mark the word enabling environment. If the environment is enabling, it will be easy for those small-scale miners to go in and register their businesses. Look, you discover gold in Mufumbo. Why can't you create an office, a cadastre office in Mufumbo, that you begin helping the miners there in Mufumbo to easily acquire their mining licenses? But they have to travel all the way from Lusaka to bring papers here and get the natural resources there. These are things that we intend to change when we come into government. As you and I are speaking, there is gold at Kasenseli in Monilonga. There is gold in Mufumbo. There is gold in Impika. There is gold almost everywhere now we talk about there is gold. We should have a Ministry of Mines being flexible, centralized, and go and help their people. Because our people have found the process of getting registered also sometimes very cumbersome. The bureaucracy involved in getting your mining license, your artisanal license, is so bureaucratic. But government can make it easy for them. You make it easy. Once you make it easy for them, they are going to get those papers and they are going to start paying the taxes that you want them to pay. But they will not pay those taxes because when one is in Mufumbo and thinks of traveling to Lusaka, the money they will spend, apanga naya, Jeff ku Lusaka, but when the Ministry of Mines is hands-on, what are they doing in Lusaka? Just issuing press statements. I think they have to be serious. They have to go on the ground, collect the much needed revenue, support our local people that have used the initiative, who have been driven by poverty and lack, to go and camp in the bush so they can begin raising that revenue to keep their families. Government has to support initiatives, not stifle initiatives. That is the problem that we have now. So yes, it's a good gesture that government can try to go and get money from the IMF and the World Bank. Those multilateral institutions will not take you out of poverty. They will sustain you to continue running your affairs, but getting out of poverty is a question of making sure that you value add your resources. You make use of what you have to a point where we should go to the World Bank and IMF to get money so that we can empower our artisanal miners to have proper mining tools to dig out that gold, dig out that copper, dig out that mineral for the benefit of the country. And in that way, you are borrowing to invest in something that is productive rather than consumption.
How much in your own, as a party and your own ideas, how much thinking is there to say, okay, so we have these miners, these small-scale miners, taking out the gold. Who do they sell it to? Because I've heard people say this, that sometimes you find in some of these areas, and they always reference the DRC, that sometimes you find you have these illegal buyers of minerals who end up in these locations buying minerals off the small-scale farmers, off the small-scale miners, and then that revenue doesn't end up in government. It goes straight to briefcases, into a plane, and off it goes. So how much thinking are you putting as a party and as yourself to say, how do we fix that particular angle?
As CF, we have said that the best way to help the artisanal miners and small-scale miners is to make the market readily available. How do you do it? It's like the way government has been dealing with the Food Reserve Agency. You know, there's ready market for a farmer growing maize in Choma, in Kalaba, and so on and so forth. It should be the same with our artisanal miners, because you see they struggle and they're being exploited. Zambia can be a very rich country, but I think the strategy with which we are buying minerals is not safeguarded. If they have ready market, government begins buying through agents, you know. They begin through Ministry of Mines, they create a body which begins buying minerals from small-scale miners. You'll see how much gold we are going to harvest in this country, because the volumes of gold going out is exponential. That has to come to an end. We have to conserve that, and there has to be a deliberate policy at making sure that you settle the mind of the miner. Nangwalemba umwinishimaini, nangwalemba ulatizana miner, alemba gold yako na ishuwa kutila, inaimba 1 kilo, inaimba half a kilo, na lanse ndendela mashaife, it's guaranteed revenue from this. They will stay exploit. We are from foreigners coming from outside. They will not exploit them because there is a market already. CF in government wants to move in that direction, but the minerals that we are harvesting can be accounted for properly. And one of the ways is to take the artisanal miners, small-scale miners, very, very seriously, so that what they mine has got a ready market, and that market is within their confinement.
That's artisanal. What about the big ones, the big corporations, the big mines? Is there a thinking? Because again, different people have different thoughts around mining. Some people say nationalization. Some people say more taxes. What's the CF thinking in terms of?
The CF thinking in terms of the large conglomerates who are mining in our areas has been very clear. What we want to do ourselves is to stop the financial bleeding that is happening in the mining sector. You know, government is losing a lot of revenue as a result of these huge mines. You know, the correlation between what is being mined and what is being sold, more often than not, does not tally. And we want to arrest that. These people have got markets all over the world, and we won't restrict them to say just sell in Zambia. The policy of selling within the country is for those that might not find market out. But for those ones who've already got market out and they're selling at the London Metal Exchange, it is fine. But what we need to do ourselves as citizens first, we have said we want to close the financial seepages. We want to create a body, Luchi, like the one that Kaunda had in Memako, where what is being mined and what is being sold is incongruence. Right now, we have a situation where, just like last year, I don't know if you remember, Luchi, where the Chinese declared that they imported more copper from Zambia, and yet the Bank of Zambia records were indicating that the copper that was sold to China was less than the records that China recorded. Now, what is causing that? It is that discrepancy, loss of revenue. Mining alone can contribute so much to the gross domestic product of our country. That is currently not happening because the carelessness with which the mining sector has been handled has been frightening. Mining can give us a lot of money. Look, we are doing cobalt now. How much is the price of cobalt? Maybe $3,000 per metric ton. How much is the price of copper?
About 13,000.
About 13,000. Now, if copper is going at 13,000, cobalt is going at 33,000, then you've got gold now. I think is over 100,000 per kg. We have to be serious. Why do we always talk about copper and we don't talk about gold? Why do we always talk about copper and we don't talk about cobalt? These are things that should be discussed because we are only saying, oh, copper is going to this, and we insist on copper. Where there is copper, there is cobalt. It is high time that every mineral in this country is accounted for. And the wealth of this country must be invested solely in our country so that Zambia can get out of the current economic quagmire we are in. We are in this space that Tanzania at one time also was in a space like this. But when you had Magufuli come in government, Magufuli was not a businessman. Magufuli was a practical person wanting the people of Tanzania to have what belonged to them. That Tanzanite was being mismanaged. When he came into government, he made sure that monies from the mines were going to the people. This is what the CFO do. We have seen so much drama around the mining sector. So many statements are being made, but the value for money is not being seen by the people. Look at Solwezi, look at Kalumbila, look at Lumwana. These places are producing gigantic deposits of copper. But it's all dust all over. It's all dust everywhere. Solwezi is still not developed, despite Solwezi being the new copper belt. But nothing much is happening there. Why? It's because the volumes of money leaving the country is too high compared to the money remaining in the country. Zambia has to be serious, and the seriousness begins now.
Do you worry? And then I've asked this before, but I'll ask it anyway. Do you worry about having to sit in a room, whether it's with your Minister of Finance, if you form government, when you form government, sitting across a room with investors from the mines and trying to tell them that, listen, this needs to change, and them saying, but listen, we're the ones who are employing all these people. If you don't give us what we want, we leave. Do you worry that maybe that's the conversation that a lot of governments have failed to actually have with the many of these mining?
No, I think it's not even about that conversation. I think most of our leaders are mining companies. So they can be supported by the mining companies. How did SATA manage to raise the mineralogy tax from, is it 1%, he found it to 6%? They complained and they said Zambia has to get the benefits of what we are mining in this country. He insisted. And you saw what happened when our colleagues in the UPND came in government. They reduced the mineralogy tax from 6 to 3%. So meaning revenue loss for our country. Despite having shortage of drugs in the hospitals, we continue losing revenue in the mining sector which God has given us. Now these are things that we are going to sit down with our colleagues in the mining sector. It must be a win-win situation. We want the investors to win, but we also want our people to win. This is how Kaunda did it. This is how Manawasa did it. This is how Sata did it. And I think this is how the CF will do it. We need to make an environment in the mining sector that responds to the needs of our country, instead of the country responding always to the mining conglomerates. I think it's high time a win-win situation was put in place.
What about jobs, job creation? I know that the one thing that we don't do very well in this country is we don't normally have statistics in terms of job creation. We have statistics on the cost of living, we have inflation statistics and all of those, but we rarely ever get actual statistics in terms of how many jobs have been created on a year-to-year. What's the CF's plan of getting, mopping up many people that are graduating from many schools and having jobs?
The truth of the matter is that you're not going to create jobs in this country if you don't go industrialization, if you don't industrialize. Because what is happening in our country is that we are shipping jobs outside and we are not helping our local people here. When you begin exporting raw copper like we are doing, the value addition is happening outside our borders. And it is from there, when they're doing value addition, that jobs are being created. The CF believes that Chirindawa Wamba no Wakanyaku Inyakani, charity begins at home. So we believe that we are going to make sure ourselves that we begin value addition. And it will begin as soon as we get into government. People ask a question, no, but how will you do it? You cannot industrialize with limited energy like we have now. That is why, when I had time to be in government, we embarked on a project of having the nuclear power plant facility being erected here in Zambia. It's a bid, it has been abandoned. The CF in government will begin immediately, in earnest, to ensure that the nuclear power plant facility is completed, and the memorandum of understanding that was done between the Russian Federation and the Republic of Zambia is enhanced and enforced, so that immediately we begin seeing power in this country. Once we do that, we are going to stop exporting copper and then importing bullets from China. We have to see whether we can continue making bullets from Perpetual, as it was before in Serenge, or we find another place where we can begin making our own bullets and begin exporting them to the region. Zambia is a member of SADC with a population of about 500 million people. Zambia is a member of the Great Lakes region, about 300 million people. Zambia is a member of COMESA, 450 million. So when you put these populations together, these are populations that are speaking to a market that Zambia can use. We want to use that market to supply what we can value add here. We have got Mukula tree here. We don't even use the benefits of Mukula tree. Logs are going every day outside the country to China. We have to stop that. We have to ensure that we begin value adding. We want technology from China. We want them to come in here, go into Kasempa where we've got a lot of Mukula trees, and begin value adding there. We know that there are so many artifacts that can come from Mukula tree. We also know the medicinal value of antiretroviral drugs from Mukula tree. We know the bats for guns are coming from Mukula tree. We know the wood on the base is coming from Mukula tree. So, imagine what an industry can have. Another thing is that we have got manganese in this country, we've got cobalt in this country. One of the most important aspects of those cell phone batteries is the same product we have of cobalt in this country. So why not begin talking to companies like Samsung, to see if Zambia can begin creating batteries for cell phones here, and we begin selling them out to the region. These are initiatives that the CF is going to work on when we come into government. But one thing is for sure, we are going to stop exporting soya beans in its raw form. We would rather sell soya chunks. We are going to stop exporting sunflower in its raw form or cotton. We have to make shirts in here. We have to make blankets in here. We have to make. So it is the value addition aspect.
There's a lot of
that
revenue.
will create jobs.
There's a lot of revenue that's required for that value addition, correct?
Yes, there's a lot of revenue that is required. Yeah. And that revenue is in this country. I was just talking a while ago, Luchi, that the mining sector is going to help us provide that much needed revenue. We have emeralds in this country. Nobody talks about emeralds. It's high time.
Is there one
accounting for emeralds?
Is there one particular industry that you think would be the one that propels every other industry? Like there's one that then creates the second, third, fourth, fifth.
Look, industries need to speak to one another.
Yeah.
But for us in the citizens' space, we have already identified agriculture as one of the quickest industries or sectors that is going to help propel the industrial base. Because with agriculture, it's like a vicious cycle. So once you produce your maize, you give your farmers a hammer mill to produce, they begin producing feed for chicken, for pigs. Already you are value adding and you are creating jobs already there. I think 62 years after independence this year, we must reduce on the propensity to always export raw materials. We have been exporting maize to the DRC Congo, to God knows where, and every year it's routine. But imagine if we said we will not only export raw maize the way it is, we want to export some, we want to export mealie meal, we want to export chicken feed and so on and so forth. You'll find that the amount of money that you are going to get in our country will be exponential. You can start from there. Then you look at other sectors. But at the end of the day, jobs will already start getting created in the agriculture sector, which now you can take to the mining sector, go to the health sector, go to other sectors of the economy, while building upon the agriculture sector.
One of the biggest weaknesses, and you know this because I think you and I have said this before, but I am curious whether anything has changed since the last time we spoke many years ago about this. But if you go, depending on where you go, and you travel more than I do, so you know this better than I do, but depending on where you go in this country, there's very little activity. There's very little economic activity that happens. How do we fix that? How do we change that? How do we have a situation where if you go to northern province, there is economic activity that's happening there that's not dependent on government? If you go to western, similar. Southern, similar. How do we get more economic activity that then benefits people in those areas, rather than a situation that we have now where you need government, you need whether it's government, civil service jobs, that's what spurs some form of economic activity in those areas.
Yeah, actually we have to move away from that. 62 years after independence, we need to migrate from that. Dr. Kaunda, I was very serious on issues of research and development, and the CF equally is serious on research and development. It is important to know that each area in this country can do some good economic activity for ourselves. And then that is how now you begin developing your country. That's how China did it. I mean, that's the model China used. And Zambia adopted that the Chinese model during the Kaunda time to develop industries in the various districts. I think the CF believes that is the way to go. There is a lot that should happen in Impika, but it's not happening now. Why? Because the concentration is probably just in Lumwana, just doing the copper there. But it doesn't mean that what is happening in Impika, when they discover their gold, I think somehow we should have made sure that we have these well-known people that have made it in the mining sector. businesses that can go in there. The Zambians, I'm sure, who would have been recruited to go and run or manage and see how they can properly harness those areas instead of just leaving it like that, and then now you start removing people from that, illegal miners. Had it been properly planned and managed, we would not even be calling our own people illegal miners. So the CF in government would want to ensure that we understand what is it that is in Kalomo. Kalomo is good for ranching. We have to develop and invest in that. And that's why the private players, America has been developed not by government, and they're fronting people to do that. That is being crooked. We need private players to do it and do it right.
It's interesting. Do you think that there can ever be a situation where there is less dependence on the government for anything?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, Luchi.
Because at the moment it feels like if you don't have a government connection, if you don't have government support, then your business will flounder.
It is the way government has done it. That is why we have said ourselves that we have to move away from the UPND model of unless you supported us, you voted for us, you're not going to get a business. CF in government has said businessmen and women are non-partisan. Businessmen and women do not belong to any political party. They only belong to their money-spinning ventures. That's what they belong. So us in government, we have said we will not look at the face or whatever that discriminates a person. We are going to ensure that we look at the papers. Is the person qualified in this specific area they want to do business in? Last night I was on Prime TV and I was telling them that CF in government will make sure that a business contract of $20 million and below will not be given to any outsider. It will have to be given to a Zambian company. Wholly owned 100% Zambian company. They're the ones that are going to get any business of $20 million going down. Why do we say that?
Well, that's why.
It's because we want to empower Zambians. Luchi, it is sad in this country that even when a Zambian wins a tender of $5 million, they have to go and look for somebody from outside to sell their contract to them. They give them maybe a $500,000 and they remain with a larger contract and they execute it. What that does is that it is taking away capital from our country. That has to come to an end. And we have said, if we discover that you have given out the contract which you won as a Zambian company, you've managed to be fronted by a foreign entity, you'll be charged once we discover for economic sabotage. Because it's high time we began helping Zambians. Zambians are struggling. Businesses in this country are bleeding. Why are they bleeding? It's because most of the businesses are not being given to them. They have to struggle. Even when you supply kuma prisons in the law, you supply your beans, you supply your whatever kapenta kuma prisons.
Actually, and that's what I wanted to say.
How do you survive?
That's what I wanted to say. I wanted to say that maybe the problem is not necessarily that Zambians are selling these contracts to elsewhere, but the reason why they do this is because there's no capital. If I win a tender, for example, at the moment, if I win a tender, how much capacity do I have to first of all supply? I don't have capacity. I need to go to a bank and say, listen, give me the funds. Or I need to, and then when I get this, I then have to hope that you as government pays me on time, so then I can pay this loan. And that's how many suppliers, function. And maybe that's why they then decide, you know what, let me take a shortcut, because I don't have access to capital, but the foreign guys have access to capital.
I'm not sure, right? And this is what the Citizens First is looking at. We want to create a sense of security for our businessmen and women. We want to make sure that when a businessman gets a contract, the banks themselves must be responding favorably. And this is something that we'll need to see how we can sit down with our banks. Because first of all, the interest rates at the banks are very prohibitive. These are chasing businessmen and women away from going there to even go and get money. Because when they find the interest rates going as high as 30%, 32%, 37%, then you begin thinking these are Shylocks, they're not banks. That is a problem. Government must have a deliberate policy. The same way that Malaysia has done it. It's the same way that we have seen in countries like Botswana. They have done that. Zambia too must begin looking at how those small businessmen and women can survive, as opposed to leaving them to the harsh weather or harsh conditions prevailing on the market. Look at China. I think China is the best example to tell you how they have been helping their businessmen and women make it outside. China, the Chinese government takes a hand in ensuring that maybe they give them at very limited interest rates, they get money, and the period of repayment is also well defined. They are comfortable with it. One can make their business survive within it and be able to pay their loans, as opposed to what we have in this country. There is limited, if at all zero, initiative to help our people. We are failing to make it in markets like the DRC Congo. The DRC Congo, we should have had many Zambians making it there. But because there is no initiative from government to push our people there, they can't make it. We should be making it in countries like Mozambique, South Africa, Botswana. We can't make it because our government is all seated here giving you speeches day after day, and they're failing to help the entrepreneurs that they should be helping.
I had a conversation with somebody, I won't say his name, and it was an off-air conversation even though he was on radio, and he said that there's a conversation that we don't have as a people. This is population. That our population is growing at a rate that our GDP just can't handle. And until we start having this conversation in terms of how do we match our population growth with our GDP, we will forever be poor.
Well, to some extent it could be right. The population is growing beyond the GDP statistics. And why is that? Again, it comes back to the same thing that I've been talking about, Luchi. It is a lack. What can we value add to export? Zambia will continue having that problem. CF in government will deal with that, and we know how to deal with it because...
How do you know how to deal with it?
Because we are going to stop this business of investing more in outsiders than the locals. That's what is happening now. Luchi, the people that are running big businesses go on contracts, even just the simple Lusaka and Dollar Geo carriageway. You have given it, and yet it's a PPP, but you have given it even to outsiders. And you use NAPSA and you use workers' compensation, to fund that project, monies from Zambian people, and you give a foreign entity to run that project. I think for me that's a misdemeanor. That must stop. That project should have been given to a Zambian because they're using Zambian money. But no, for the UPN it is fine. So how do you expect the population growth and the GDP to be talking to one another? They can't, because you are investing in foreign hands as opposed to investing in your own locals. Obasanjo, Nigerians have big banks today. You have the Dangotes of this world, they're there. Why? It's because of the deliberate policies that were made. I remember in South Africa during the 2010 World Cup, there was a project to construct a stadium, I think it was in Durban, and there were tenders that were done. The South African government at that time sat and found that one of the foreign countries was cheaper than a South African company. They made a decision to say, yes, this foreign entity is cheaper than this South African company, but for reasons of empowering our own people, we are going to take this one who is a bit more expensive than this one because the money is for this person who stay in this country as opposed to this country, this other company. That is the attitude. That is the mentality Zambians should have, leaders should have. But no, they don't want that. We coming in government this year, we are going to change the narrative and ensure that we allow our Zambian citizens, our Zambian businesses, and see how best we can help them. That is the role of government, as opposed to what we are saying. You can't compete without capital with someone who's coming from a country where their governments are helping them make it. You are on your own. The conditions are harsh, and you want to compete evenly. And so, how can you talk about GDP and being in tandem with the population growth? You can't. We'll still have that problem for as long as we fail to empower our own people. That is why we are calling our party Citizens First. It must be Zambians first. Empower Zambians first. Then the rest we can talk.
Is there a thinking around possibly changing what CDF currently looks like? Because again, when you talk about industrialization, you need revenue. At the moment, there's just a basket of revenue that's out there that's going around various constituencies. You can make the argument whether or not there is real development that's taking place, but what's the thinking behind Citizens First CDF idea?
I'll tell you that the CDF has been mismanaged and mishandled. The CDF, as I told you last time, was an idea mooted in West Africa in Senegal. And it was to help parliamentarians to cut the bureaucracies of central governance. But here, they get that and make it as if it is the ultimate thing. That's why CDF has not answered the challenges. First of all, they are getting money from line expenditures of central government. They are getting money from Ministry of Health. They're getting money from the line budget of Ministry of Community Development. They're getting line budgets from Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Education, and so on and so forth. That's why they're getting the same money. So it's just money they're just reducing the budgets in Lusaka and take the monies in the various constituencies, which money is not even there. Today you have CDF buying police vehicles. Why would CDF? Now, it is these problems and lack of understanding of governance that has brought us where we are today. We should have a situation where you begin decentralizing slowly. So CF in government will make sure that the process of decentralization is one that will even make communities where we're centralizing be able to absorb the monies that will be given. Right now we have a situation where some constituencies are suffocating because of just the 5 million water which you have given them, and they can't process it. Now, you give them 48 million.
But whose fault is that?
It's the fault of the government that has not thought through things. Because when you are giving money...
But you have very educated technocrats in many of these countries.
Yeah, but these technocrats are not being consulted, and that's the problem again. They have not understood the role of civil servants. When we come into government as citizens first, we'll make sure that the role of civil servants is amplified, enhanced, and we ensure that the people get to understand the role of civil servants. I'm a civil servant, no matter we are quiet, completely quiet. But don't worry, civil servants, we are coming, and we'll ensure that, because I'm a former civil servant, as you know, I'm not a typical politician like most people. I am coming from the civil service. I spent most of my time there in the civil service, rising through the ranks. So I know the frustrations that are going on. I'm a technocrat, but they would continue doing what they want to do without listening to technocrats. And at the end of the day, you remain with CDF 48 million. You are giving to a constituency in Chipiri, giving to a constituency in Kaputa, giving to a constituency, which constituencies will not be able to absorb that kind of money. Because even government itself there, by Ministry of Health, by NANI, they don't even receive that kind of money we're talking about. Now, it's what happens when people don't listen to people that they should be listening to. That is what has brought UPND down.
I'm curious, why wouldn't they be able to absorb 38 million?
First of all,
so here's the thing. I say that for 4 years now, we're going into year 5, or we are in year 5 of CDM. I always say that we should have been seeing big development. That's where I argue with development people. I always say that if you take that amount of money over the past 4 years, you throw it in my constituency in Monze, I should be able to see it when I go there. I should be able to see and say, okay, here this is where the money has gone to. Desks, okay, hospital, that's fine, but it's not. It doesn't feel like real development,
no.
Right? And then I wonder, when you say now that they don't absorb this money, I think, but wait, why are they not absorbing?
They can't absorb it because
they don't know what to do with it?
No.
Is it because you in Lusaka should be telling them, listen, rather than the situation you have now, which is that they decide what they bring, it should be us in Lusaka saying, do this development.
In fact, let me tell you what happens on CDF. In fact, CDF, it has been compartmentalized. They have told them, for this sector you can spend this. For this you can spend this. For this you can spend this. For this you can spend this. For loans it's this. For education it is this. So all the monies they have already told them on how to spend. From where? From Ministry of Local Government, which is Lusaka. Now, if you are talking about decentralization, you should have allowed the locals there to spend the way they understand and interpret the environment. That is not happening. Centralization requires enhancement of the local community. That is not happening because they can't use the money in that fashion because they've already given them guidelines from Lusaka. That is not centralization. And you asked me a question: why can't they absorb the money? They can't absorb the money because, first of all, they don't have the infrastructure to absorb that money. Who is at a constituency office? Who is there? It is a guard, the secretary, and the personal assistant to member of parliament. Now the councils are helping them. How many members of staff do you have at the council? Because when you go to a district like Kasama, where I'm coming from, you've got Lukasha and receive 48 million. You've got Kasama Central receive 48 million. So in all, they've got about 96 million kwacha. Now tell me, how are they going now to start? And how many officers do you have at the council? Or you have about 8 of them. The 8 of them are required to now sit, plan, and execute. We are joking here. We are joking. That is not the way you expend money like that. That is why year in and year out, go and ask them that, Minister of Finance. Monies are coming back. Just in December, monies were going back, if at all there was even money, because what we have come to understand about this CDF, of our colleagues, the UPND, it is money on paper. Practically, they have received 5 billion. Ask them when you invite them here. No constituency so far has ever received the amount of monies that they have been saying that they are dispersing. Why haven't they received? Because they don't give them the monies. Now, it's what they say, you can't have development in that fashion when you are telling people we are giving you this kind of money, when in actual fact, there is no money that you are giving them. That is the problem with the CDF. And when we come into government, we are going to review it. We want CDF to be actual. If we say CDF, you'll be receiving 10 million, the actual 10 million will be received. Not you are mentioning figures and what you are giving them is less. That is not the way government works. That is not the way development comes. That is how governments have failed to go anywhere. That's how communities have failed to develop. And the CF is coming in government to stop that road.
Do you think we can ever get to a place where there is real decentralization?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Is that under CF?
The CF will make sure that we begin centralization.
Because real decentralization is similar to what they have, although it's a state system, but it's similar to what similar to what they have in the US.
States,
where states decide, provinces should be able to decide what we do with the funds that are given to us or what that the province makes. We decide what we do with it.
When I was Minister of Lands, I began the process of decentralizing the issuance of title deeds. Before, when I was minister, all title deeds which were being gotten from Lusaka, and I said, why can't Ndola issue title deeds? No, because we have said we are going to transfer staff from here. Let them go and be based in Ndola. Under my watch, we began giving out title deeds in Ndola. Ndola began servicing the northern region. Now, that is how centralization works. Instead of Lusaka issuing title deeds alone, Ministry of Lands, Ndola begins issuing title deeds. Then you develop it. Now, Ndola, can you find other centers which can begin issuing title deeds? So that people stop traveling. In the process of traveling, they're having accidents. We don't want that. Can Livingston begin issuing title deeds? Or can Choma begin issuing title deeds? Can Mongo issue title deeds? Now, that is decentralizing. You are bringing the services to your people just at their doorsteps. You can do that without it being a federal state. You can say the issuance of passports. Instead of Lusaka being the only place which should give you a passport, Ndola can start giving passports. Choma should start giving passports. Kasama should begin giving passports. That is decentralizing without allowing your people to travel to one particular place. So, yes, you can do centralization without becoming a federal state. And the CF in government will ensure that we decentralize as much as possible. I was just talking the other day, I think it was on Prime TV. I was saying, when you hear people have discovered gold in Mufumbwe, what are you doing at Cadastre here in Lusaka? Go and open an office in Mufumbwe and begin issuing artisanal licenses on site. That is centralization. You don't have to get a miner, just increasing corruption at the headquarters here. We don't want that. Go to where it is happening. Issue title, issue licenses, and that is how government should be working when we come into government.
Okay, let me take a little break for news. We'll be back very shortly. Our guest this morning is the president of the Citizens First. We'll be back just after the community news with your calls as well as your SMSs.
National Milling Corporation, Zambia's pride nationwide. The headlines: PS Kalusa cautions engineers over drainage system, and elephant attacks 14-year-old Kasenengwa girl. With the community news, I am Patti Mogando. Lusaka Province Permanent Secretary Joe Kalusa has directed local authority engineers to redesign drainages in Lusaka district to combat flooding. Engineer Kalusa has attributed improper drainage designs to the flooding being experienced in the province. Zanis reports that the Permanent Secretary said this during the District Disaster Management Committee meeting with waste management stakeholders in Lusaka district. Engineer Kalusa also stressed making available funding for waste management firms in order for them to operate effectively, and cautioned waste management companies to handle duties efficiently. The Lusaka Province Permanent Secretary also directed the local authority to monitor waste management companies closely. A 14-year-old girl of Kasenengwa district in the Eastern Province is nursing injuries at Chipata Central Hospital after being attacked by a stray elephant. Confirming the matter to Zanis in Chipata yesterday, Eastern Province Police Commanding Officer Robertson Mwemba said the victim sustained a deep cut on the right thigh and body pains. Mr. Mwemba revealed that his office received information about a stray elephant last week, and that officers from the Department of National Parks and Wildlife were engaged. He explained that the victim was rescued by community members who heard noises and rushed to the scene, adding that the juvenile was operated on at Chipata Central Hospital when taken for medical examination, and that her condition is currently stable. To end the community news, the headlines once again. PS Kalusa cautions engineers over drainage system, and elephant attacks 14-year-old Kasenengwa girl. Ends the community news. Keep listening to Let the People Talk. The community news was brought to you with the compliments of National Milling Corporation. National Milling Corporation, Zambia's pride nationwide.
Mdala na mvela ati mzimayi wapaka ntemba vuta.
Vuta cha?
Ati vantu wachitu tantama mdala. Vinangu wachitu pakinga mamotoka. Na mataipa mkosi sofu.
Wavuta na chia ni mzimayi.
Vitumbuwa vamene. Vanzake munga siwa lipo ka? Inuna munga ni makwala. Vogwila gwile vachiboy. Ndava vachi.
Imwe boza. Simu nkwala iyayi.
Manje ni vicha?
Ni vitumbua flour mix yaba National Milling Corporation. Vichoka. Flour yokonzeka kudala. Nekufaka machebe manzi na isti basi. Wafrainga.
Vitumbua flour mix. Ndi flour. Osakaniza kare. Kwa hiyo, ndi kungo frying achabe mosavuta. Vitumbua flour mix. Wasopano, apezeka mumatumba a 10 kgs kuchokela ku abwenzi ano antauzonse. Awa ndi a National Milling Corporation. National Milling Corporation. Zambia's pride nationwide.
Stand 07, welcome back to Let the People Talk. Our guest on the program this morning, the president of the Citizens First, Kalaba, is with us this morning. Before I go to phone calls and text messages, I want to ask you something. You mentioned it very briefly. You talked about nuclear in terms of energy, as a solution.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I don't know if you've seen this, but at the moment there is a huge conversation that people are having about, number one, how much units of electricity are going, and how fast they're depleting. Does that worry you? Does that concern you? Just how much people are buying electricity?
I'm a light na dola which. I'm a light na dola. Watch them a light 100 kwacha. You only get maybe about 20 or 25.
No, actually, you should get more.
Yeah, but I don't have the exact.
I have the exact because I bought electricity today in the morning. So
100, how much?
I bought for 200. I got 213 units. So it looks like the ones who are buying for anything less than 200, you will be able to get at least 200, unless it's.
But also at the beginning of the month.
Yes, at the beginning.
Yes.
But it's the ones who are buying for. I'll give you an example. I want to be practical. I'll give you an example. I was at my sister's house yesterday. It was her first purchase of electricity yesterday. Because there are a few pumps in the yard, so she bought electricity for 3,000 kwacha. I thought it would be a lot more. It was 900 units, and I thought that is excessive.
It's very expensive.
That is excessive.
It's very expensive, and it's because the government, as you know, they increased the tariffs for electricity last time, and they increased at a time when citizens did not even have power. Now they have given you power, which that with which that withheld for some time, and it's like simultaneously pay them a light. Somehow they're saying, well, let me pay them a light, but let me panic. You know, you don't do that. The cost of electricity has just become very expensive. Because salaries are not increasing. The civil servants up to now, as one are speaking, they have not seen any increment in the salaries. So it is things like this that we're talking about. That's why we need to come in and provide solutions to this problem.
But is that the
Bringing
devil?
in-
Is that the devil of cost-reflective tariffs that many people are
It
talking
is,
about?
it is, it is. They're saying it's cost-reflective tariffs were the cheapest in the region, and therefore we needed to be like other regions. I mean, how do you govern a country like that? The job of government is to ensure that they provide relief to their people, and one of the ways to provide relief is for government to ensure that they bring down the cost of electricity as much as they should. But no, they have said we have to make them cost-reflective. And yet they are busy giving mining incentives, tax incentives, tax holidays to mining conglomerates in the mining sector. It is this discrepancy I'm talking about. They just don't care about the ordinary people. Abantu balechula. And you can pay them like 200 ruchi. And then you get them units, 3,000. You get them units 900. And that's at the beginning of the month. Let them again buy 3,000. And you see how many units they'll get. It is basically robbing your own citizens, and this has to be looked at.
So is the thinking at the moment, because this might be new thinking, I don't know whether you've sat down to think about this, but is the thinking from CF to say, when we come in, we might have to have a conversation about the cost reflectiveness of these
Definitely.
and making it, what is it, subsidizing?
I mean, you have to make it affordable. It's the job of government.
So is it
to make sure that,
subsidizing
yeah, you subsidize it, and you have to do that so that your people can at least make it manageable. But when you say it is cost reflective, of course I understand. Somebody will call here and tell you that, look, ZESCO has got a lot of
They've got a lot of debt.
obligations
Yes.
that they need to service, and that it's by us paying cost reflective tariffs that will make ZESCO afloat, and that without doing that ZESCO will be underperforming and what. But first of all, what we should understand, why was ZESCO created in the first place? It was created to provide a service to the people of Zambia. There was a time we were not even paying anything for this ZESCO. Then we began paying. And then there was a time we used to, first of all, they would give you power and then you pay at the month end. And now they changed that. Now it is you pay and then it will show. But now they have exposed us to harsh conditions of Amalite. This thing has to be addressed. This thing has to be dealt with. We come in government, we'll deal with it aggressively so, and make people have electricity for real. Not what is happening.
Can you
And pay Amalite, but on the other hand, at Remy Poker, using it tariffs.
Can you ever have a country where, can you ever have a successful country where you, especially in Africa, where you subsidize quite a bit? Because I know the next thing will be, okay, what about millennial? The plan also might be subsidizing because the price will never come down if you leave it to the market. Fuel as well.
You don't subsidize Milimioluchi, you subsidize production. It is on production that you work on. You leave the end product alone, but make sure that the farmers, as they get their fertilizer, they're getting it cheaper. Make sure that the farmers, as they're getting their seed, they're getting it cheaper. And how do they get it cheaper? You have to look at the fuel. How much are they selling? How much are we buying this fuel? How can we work on the fuel structure to make sure that we deal with, evidently, the price of milk which keeps on escalating? That is how you deal with those things. Now, it's the same with electricity. This electricity thing, you just cannot leave it the way it is. You have to deal with it. Call it subsidizing. Whatever word you have to use, it is the job of government. And show me a country in the world that does not subsidize. Go to the United Arab Emirates. Go to Qatar today. In Qatar, even fuel is almost free. You go to countries like Botswana, countries like, which countries are not subsidizing their citizens? They want to see which area can we subsidize for production to be enhanced. That is how a government looks at its people. You don't expose your people to harsh conditions because ZESCO should meet its obligations. That is why we elected you, Yue. Stand up, go and find solutions. Don't overburden your people.
Okay, let me go to the phone. I know a lot of people want to talk to you this morning.
Couldn't put something like 300. Isampera 180 units. Oro nishinare unganakita 300, nare kwa 430 units. Nomba muone fe batalicho. Kuranda tuvute kubaita kwa bena Zambia. Awo. Nomba echo ndefo kulanda ine bakalaba. Takutira mwema opposition mutakani. Bantu nga mwalimu n'ekisha kumire kumani. Balibira amabodi. Ana abantu balelolesako. Ubuteko bwaita nkwiba amabodi. Kamamu nama election yonse tapaba ko bawina genuine. Bayipo yonse kama election bawina mukwiba. Na ile ne yakuchawama na teku gatinga pe wino ngabaliba. Mwalemona kwali baba Kalaba bifali norobengishe amagodi kuri ada nani prayer. Bifali uletiramo. Nikwesa kwa mwene pwese. So ni pamula ndogo atibali mwebere pintu pimo isi wapili woku kuchitano manasi kontafi. Ekuli okupiba. Ba isi zeti avalelo. Eba leti tana facilitate Ethiopia isi. Mwamona te. So nomba, mkua kwa kwe bena Zambia, kwe ba leti ulisha. Ngemo mulelo ndorwe. Tuapapata. Tufunyepo uuteko tuapapata. Kwa zangu tuapokwe bena Zambia. Mukuri pusha imwa president. Kena mumwalaba ma president abakula ngusura toire imo ku people. Bantu ba president bafuna bare isura ma hospitals, bafuna bare isura ma clinic, bafuna bare family clinic na party.
Mr. Mishek, your line is fading off, but thank you very much. I think we get the question. Thank you very much. Hello, good morning. Morning. What's your name, sir?
Mr. Ntele.
Okay, Mr. Ntele, go ahead.
President Kalaba, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ntele. I used to call you and you have stopped answering me. Now, quick one. My President, I don't know who's supposed to rescue Zambia. Is it an individual as you are, I'm talking about the party. I know that we have been going under difficulties over this situation. Now, Mr. Kalaba, fuel has been reduced, electricity has gone up. I don't know what scenario they are using in Egypt. Now, my big question is this, Mr. Kalaba. You know, I'm not clear about our president. What I've seen in his social media, no, he has gone to the farm. Now, my question, for how long the president should be absent, should go for leave? Eh? We have to know that, no, I know that somebody can go for 7 days, 21 days. He has been out for so many times. And is it advised of the president operating to another country? I know that he has to go countrywide. I've been told that he has been in the farm. I don't know whether it's back or how to is it. Now, my question, Makalaba, why can't you just, you know, humans, people are crying that background about now, but leadership, there's a lot of language. So, as it is, I don't know, maybe it can be the last day to stand on the Phoenix. What's way forward as a citizen? Are you going to go alone? Are you going to stand with other opposition party? Eh? Please, Mr. Kalaba, help this country. No, like free education, which is there, which is good. We can't blame everything. There's a lot of issues. Talk about farming and so on. People that haven't been paid and so on and so on. They are saying salaries, they are still tight. Now, if it means you are coming tomorrow, how are we going to help with these things? Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Mr. Taylor. Let me take another one. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Good morning. What's your name, sir?
My name is Elijah Nwale, Guru Ambassador for and Senior Blind Citizen. How are you, Uchi Esquire?
We are well, thank you. Go ahead with your question, sir.
In fact, I've heard the contribution, although I studied the other late, but I've appreciated this contribution. The major problem we have in Zambia now, and repeat, I'm UPND. So when I'm saying this, I'm not saying out of animosity or acrimony or antipathy. I'm saying in good faith. The problem we have now is that we do not have programs as such. We do not have policies as such. What we have in Zambia, and you take my words very seriously, Honorable Kalaba, we have what I call presidential itineraries. presidential itineraries, ministerial itineraries. What do I mean by that? Every time you hear the president says this, the president says that, the president says this. Even the way the cabinet meets now is just like a caucus, just within 3 hours. There you have got my friend, Minister of Information. We had the cabinet yesterday, and we see that these are presidential the itinerary. What we need in Zambia is to have a body, like as you are doing unique. You have a cabinet meeting. You have whatever body you need. You have got the policies. You have got, especially during the time of who is this man, the late Manawasa. It was a government of policies. But this time, you don't have policies. It's all, you are referring to Exodus 20, verse 1 to 10. President said this. President said it. Mount Sinai put it. So what I'm appealing to my party, UPND, is this. Find ways and means of coming up with programs, not depending on presidential directives, presidential itineraries. No.
Okay, Professor Ngwale, thank you very much. Again, I think we get the question. Do you want to quickly respond? There are three. I'll let you respond. I can remind you of some of them if you want.
I think for Professor Ngwale, I think there's nothing I can say because it's not directed to me. It's directed to his party.
But sorry,
Mr.
no, but actually there is. I think there might be. So let me rephrase it for him. This thing about there not being policies. Do you think, if you look back at the past 4 years, would you say that there's been way more conversations, way more talk than there have been actual policies that can then help the people?
Well, first of all, whatever the president says is policy.
Okay.
That is the position of cabinet.
Okay.
Whatever the president pronounces becomes policy.
But there's lack of activity.
But there's lack of implementation.
Okay.
I mean, typical. I think what Mr. Ngwale was failing to tell the Zambian people is that Mr. Ichilema is just talking the talk, and there is no action happening. So Mr. Ngwale, I think that's what you wanted to say. The UPN is full of talk and no action. That is why you see that things are just in overdrive. Things are happening on their own, no pilot. It's just on its own, autopilot. And that's a problem that we have in the country now. You need a leader that is firm, that is strong, a leader that knows how to navigate issues, as opposed to the playing we are seeing around here. Mr. Ntele says I don't pick up his calls. I don't remember, Mr. Ntele. Please, after the program, you are free to call me, sir. I will definitely pick up your call. I've got no reason not to pick your call. You've raised the issue of Mr. Ntele was talking about.
He's talking about leave. Among other things, how long should the president go on leave?
How long should the president
and
go
he
on
mentioned
leave
farmers and farmers not being paid
in
on
fact,
time.
Yeah, in fact, Mr. Taylor wanted to deal with the issue of farmers. I think Mr. Ichilema has made a mockery of our farmers. He has never taken our farmers seriously. Because if he did, he would not have found money for Bill 7. And he doesn't find money for our farmers. This is a mockery to our farmers, and you can't grow farming in that particular, with that particular attitude. If Dr. Kaunda, who ruled this country for 27 years, was managing farming the way Mr. Kainde Ichilema is managing farming, Kaunda would not have stayed for 27 years. The Zambians will not allow Ichilema to go beyond August this year, because they have seen his behavior. It is one that is not promoting farming. If there is a community, today as you and I are speaking, my farmers, my young drivers, my taxi and bus drivers, but were neglected. Nobody is there to speak for them. But that is why we as CF are coming on board to ensure that dignity to a farmer is restored. The FRA is under instruction. Once you buy maize, and I want to say this at the expense of sounding like a broken rocket, the FRA today, the following day, because whatever maize you are getting, you should have the money. People should not be able to wait for 6 months, 3 months, and now it's becoming a norm that you have to wait for 1 year, you have to wait for 6 months, 7 months before you get your money. That is not right.
But it's been a norm
that
for a
is
long
robbing.
time, hasn't it?
I'm saying it should not be a norm.
Okay.
That is robbing our people. that is discouraging farming. That's why a lot of people are shunning farming, because farming is very intensive. I'm a farmer myself, Roger. I understand what it entails. Farming is capital intensive, labor intensive, and then pakupoka omufundo n'inkono, pakubyala ni problem, pakushitisha ni problem, pakupokenderama ni problem. How can you go in a business like that? That's not the way it ought to be. That is why we have people that have never graduated from being small-scale farmers to commercial farmers. They have remained stagnant year in and year out. Why? Because the environment is harsh for a farmer. CF in government has to change that. The FRA, the way they'll be buying maize will be different. I must scale of Africa for a scales to buy maize.
In other words,
Masaka.
In other words, there'll be an infinite budget line.
Not infinite budget line. What you are buying, you need to pay for it instantly. Instantly. You cannot get people's products. Even in the shop, when you go in the shop, you're buying something. You don't get and say, I'll pay it tomorrow because of government. You get and you pay. That's how you sustain a business.
But
Earlier on, you and I were talking about small-scale businesses suffocating in this country. Yeah. It is this same attitude of government that is killing our farmers. We have to stop it. We have to devise a method of encouraging farming. Otherwise, there's nowhere we're going. Malawi, our neighbors here, Malawi, they are able to look after their farmers. Malawi does not have copper that you have. Malawi is depending on agriculture. That is why today we can grow tobacco, and we're taking it to Malawi for processing. Why? Because the Malawans have taken agriculture seriously. Here we are just playing, just talking the talk. And then Mr. Tele says the president goes and stays in, was it in Choma? For 1 month or so? Well, I don't know how long the president who is serious should be taking leave of his duty. But obviously a month away from office is exaggerated. And the president also should also learn to take holidays elsewhere in the country. He should be finding himself in Mfue. He takes leave there in Mfue. Akaunda was always going there. He can as well go there. You know, he can go on the copper belt. That is why the copper belt is having a problems when say I'm a mining here. First of all, I think he's about the first president who has never known the copper belt. You know, when you look at Kaunda, he understood the copper belt very well. He lived there. You look at Chiluba. Chiluba was a product of the copper belt. You look at Mwanawasa, copper belt. You look at Rupia Banda, his business is on the copper belt. You look at Vasata, copper belt. So it is only him who has not taken interest in the copper belt, and that is why we have got a lot of problems on the copper belt. Instead of him taking time to be on the copper belt to understand the plight of our miners, he's busy saying we're exterminating the illegal miners from there. That is not the way to look after our mining community. Okay. CF in government will change the narrative. Then the first one, Mr. Mishek was talking about uniting. Are you going to stand alone by CF and what? Look, Luchi, many people have asked me that question, and I have been belaboring to answer it because there's been a notion that has been sent out there in the public. No, Kalaba adiba pompas. Kalaba Kalaba wants to work alone. And I ask the people saying that, who do you want me to work with? We spent time in Tonse. Not Tonse, in Uka. We spent time in Uka for 1 year, 3 months we were in Uka. Then Uka did not work out. They went and created, the PF went and created Tonse. When they create that Tonse, right now, you know what is happening in Tonse. It's a house on fire. And then you want me to leave a house which is stable here. I'm in CF, I leave it. Because you are saying we should come together, I go and say, okay, I know your house is in fire, but can I spend the night here? We have said, we want our colleagues to sort out their internal challenges with PF. Once our PF sorts out their internal challenges, we don't want to be part of any confusion as CF. Let them sort out their internal challenges. Once they finish their internal challenges, they can come and talk to us. For now, Mr. Ntele, Mishek, as we talk about alliances, we need to be very careful. In 2021, Luchi, I was invited by the Oasis Forum to say, from what we are seeing, Mr. Kainde Ichilema will become president. And I said, fine. So, we would want you to be part of this success story, and Kainde are winning. And me, I said, excuse me, I'm not going to be part of that. There's nothing he's going to do. And because I know him, I am not going to pretend here that I should be supporting umuntu shakabombe, umusupport about you. You know, it's the same thing. UPND, after 4 years at you now feel to PF again, you know, we can't be going round circles like that. We can't. We need to find a permanent solution to this. And the alliances of 12 years, Amishek, number I think we need to chat. 12 years, at the end of the day, I have alliances. I have a forced alliances. But understand that people will begin fighting even more when they win power than service delivery. Alliances of any sort must be aimed at helping the ordinary Zambian people out of the current quagmire. Any alliance should be able to begin figuring out how will we reduce these tariffs. Ama government sabalesa kabiye mwa misisire lo mfulanga yaloka ile ngira mayanda yabantu mfulanga yaloka ile ngira mayanda yabantu. Those are things we should be dealing with. Kabiye ndikuma yango drivers government even say it's serious. If ile amana yango drivers twala basunga shani aba as opposed to just saying iseni pam. The citizens first, for avoidance of doubt. The CF was not formed to assist anybody to get into power. Because they keep saying, oh, why was selfish, So that will help you to get into power, to continue enjoying, to continue. Well, we're not there for that. The CF is there for service delivery. We want to help the Zambian people. It is for that reason, in case you have forgotten, sir, that is why I resigned as Foreign Affairs Minister, abandoning comfort to say I'll be with the people of Alechula. So, we are not doing things just for purposes of convenience. You do the same regrets and to galap the mufindu for mofini. You don't say no mamma mutamu, you send pamu, Mufunia, look at Mufunia for Chivashan. Ile low, Abantuala is regret. Ufia Povalung. Balano tell him about Lungu by the Pobuino, but we do a later. But on Alela and Dynamo 2021. Again, I was called names. Luchi. You are selfish. You are power hungry. Just because nakana support the melo for Lampamba, nakana, apopene, yamani problem. Because na rifimweni. And I don't know how long I have to live in this life. I have to do what is right, and I am happy that the Central Committee of our party is solely in charge of this process, and they will be making evaluations. Which alliances we have to associate ourselves with, and how can we get into government, working with other partners that will focus on alleviating the suffering of the people of Zambia. It should be about the people, not about individual parties.
Okay. There's a couple. I want to read a couple of text messages before I go back to the phone lines. Let me start with this. Honorable Kalaba left PF for alleged corruption. What corruption was he talking about, and what strategies is his government going to pursue the fight against corruption?
I think I was very clear when I left government. I was very clear. I said the things that are happening now. Our ministers, my ministers, they are employing their own people. They are doing those things. I said I can't be part of that, and I left government. I think I was very clear. People said go and complain, go to corruption commission. I said the Zambian people themselves will see. There were a lot of things that were being discussed at that time, which were at Mandamanda, Shani, everything that was being procured was in complete suspect. And I didn't want to be part of that. Because I believe that service to the nation is more important than self-aggrandizement. So, how are we going to fight corruption? We'll take on corruption very, very seriously. We'll not do as the UPND is doing. The UPND have said when you're investigating a minister, don't tell the nation. How can you fight corruption like that? Umuntu na isha tuwaya musta investigate. But mulempangira na tea, alila nama biscuits, na corruption na kwa mutwe. You don't want to tell the public. You are also complicit. You are aiding corruption in that fashion. Vakaunda would not tolerate that. Vachiluga would not tolerate that. Vasata would not tolerate that. They would not tolerate those things. But Ababa Nesu, they are protecting themselves in government. so that they show themselves that it's a clean government. This is one of the most corrupt governments, very corrupt governments, that Zambia has ever seen in the history of our republic. And when they get out of office, they came in government for their own aggrandizement. That is why abantu kutali pino muntu amalaiti ya 300 amayunits asenda 180. Muntu ashita malaiti ya 3000 amalaiti asenda 900. They don't even care about that. What they care, ma contracts wale poka kuma oil, ma contracts wale poka kuma all government contracts emobali, but that is not the way of sunga balanda. Mule chusha abantu. That is why 13th August. Mule mbeshe mobale mbeshe sunyana mafuta skati yenwe. Mule sunge buno sana. Bakutira muke says for Kalaba na CF.
Another question here from somebody. This is a very good question, by the way. This is from Oscar. Oscar says, who is funding the CF? Is it foreigners or ordinary citizens? I asked this to avoid being captured if he was into office.
Look, that is why the CF has taken time to grow. You know, Luchi, people were saying, you have not done well in Chawama. You have not done well in Kasama. And I looked at them. Luchi, to form a political party from the scratch, build it to where we are now, is not for ordinary mortals. Yadi kakana. To form a political party, Watampa party, you even start winning a by-elections. Because as you and I are speaking, we are from winning a by-election some 2 months ago in Mufidi. We won a by-election 3 months ago in Mufidi. And then to Aisa, Uchawama, where we have had parties who have existed for years. CF need 3 years here. Na Zambia na Ishiva citizens first. It is not easy. Now, who's funding the citizens first? This is why our growth has been organic. Because Bantu fear. 1,000 oh, I am a polling agents 1,000 deal. Nana Watuma 5,000 kwacha. Abana Watuma Basata Vekedia Pana over president. Here is a 2,000 kwacha. You put the monies together and you use it wisely. That is how the citizens first has grown. Because Munom Zambia and any foreigner, they will not fund a party where they don't think that na quarter life. So you can imagine, these people, the owners of the party who have believed in the vision, have sustained it. Yeah, I country Mozambique if you're in the land, because whoever to level of president is one thing. Whoever okay, iwe ole for president. Panga party you have paid money. Panga party you to money how many votes you get in Chawam. But it is easy to say na lafi samina mu UPND or na lafi samina mu PF and then mama nyokutela. But when they ask you, they isolate you, make your party. Let's see how you are going to perform. Ninkondo, the CF has not been relying on any people that have gone to the Lord. When we are campaigning, we don't rely on Mr. Sata. When we are campaigning, we don't rely on Mr. Edgar Lungu. We rely on our policies. To afia bantu, ukutila wa minibus driver, ifika na chimbui, ifika na maikata. Na tuwaisa wa illegal miners imwe. They are calling you illegal miners. Kalaba ngaisa, ichochi election is chapo. The people are getting the message and they are buying in our message. That is why we are growing. So, please, it is the local people who are supporting us. And being captured, is this the time? Ingawa captured. I have a risk. You know what? Money is important. But on the 10 priorities of my life, money does not even appear there. There are much more important things in life. And that is what I think people need to understand. Ukutila. Na ifwebe nenga tuwale na yobwali mukasa mamu bale na yobwali. Ba UPND bali kwa jamashiko. Bale na yobwali pali ponse. Naba nesu wenwa FTD. Bale na ifmali all over the place. We never had this shiko ifo. If what we are fiabantu, if you took our to Western government. So, our growth remains the way it is. And we are happy that we are being taken seriously for August 13th.
Okay. 268410978 Hello, good morning. Good morning, sir. What's your name?
Kalaba Maukatani.
I am Kanashukan.
Quite. I will see what Copa Bill and the Visa Copa Bill. You know what kind of president we have to research what in Darama. So we can go and do what in Pia Kadeva question in Jim. Get one of the now. What is the phenomenon I see? But we can go to Wunga, no matter what this won't be. na mkazo vakwata
Right,
vatatako kuipsherwa
Okay, all right.
What president is?
I think he meant the current president.
The current president. Well, it's still around.
Thanks, sir.
Morning, Mr. Kalaba.
Good morning, sir.
What's your name? Okay, James, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to find out, Mr. Kalaba. I think there's got a challenge concerning the airline.
I'm quiet.
You know, recently government changed the policy where withholding taxes, the mines and other big companies. Now they've changed the transfer the withholding taxes to individuals or small companies. Now the challenge that we have, the government were failing to get the money from the mine. Now the soldiers that we get the money from the mine are going to solve that problem. And they're not giving us taxes. And meanwhile, they are failing to give us taxes. In meantime, in other ways, the big companies will go where we are supplying and the other big companies.
There's been a change in policy, ZRA policy, where they are asking the mines to withhold taxes, withholding tax on mines. Him and others supplied
Goods.
Goods to where normally they'll be able to get this money quickly, but because of this withholding tax issue, they're not able to get this money as quickly as they should.
Okay, I have taken note of that issue by, what's his name again?
James.
James, I've taken note of that issue. I think it is unfair and it is delaying your progress in your business transactions. Honestly, it is delaying your progress in your business transactions. It is something I'm going to take up. On the issue of standalone, James, I totally for the confidence and encouragement you have given. But in saying that, we still believe that it is important to see progressive forces. Like now, President Savoy, President Chancellor Robert, we are working with them. But if we care for owning our citizens first, kwenda ne chimwela yo alliance ingene fe mu alliance what alliance ala to position alliance but every alliance have to be scrutinized etole fire if it work again if it wekela ukabidi if it fimo for Thomas it fibombe if it partition foot will regret. Like for example in 2021 wakaenda ichile manparedio pano nali bakanina tawe imweta mulingire tetimubombe uyo muri mu president ulusapato wakulisha.
Here's two questions from someone via the text. First of all, what's your take on the village concept? It's an idea I heard of back in the day from General Godfrey Mianda, focusing on growing economic activity to the outskirts of the capital city. Do you have such an idea in mind as CF?
Village concept is basically centralization. And you and I have been talking about centralization. We have said centralization is key. You might call it whatever name you want to call it, but the best way to do service delivery is to ensure that in Kasama they can get their passports. That is service delivery. The best way to ensure that they have got best hospitals, they should not only be UTH here, only in Lusaka. We should have another form of a UTH in a place like Kasama, in a place like Isoka, so that service delivery is enhanced. That is how the CF is going to work one in government.
Okay, he or she says, the second part of the question is, you speak well, but implementation of everything that you've spoken so well about also depends on the people who are around you. What guarantee do you have that your team comprises of people that carry the same passion and love for the country like you do?
You know, I think one of the things where you can really extrapolate this from is the fact that these are people that have stood with the party in its ups and downs. We have gone through a lot. We have gone through a situation where we're getting AMA 0 in the elections to getting AMA thousands. They have never moved. When we got 20 votes, they never moved. They keep on going. And now these are people that are not in a hurry for currency or for money. And because of that quality, that is how you test leaders. Because of that quality, even when they come in government, their resilience which they have showed in opposition, they will still show it when we form government. Because character is like a pregnancy. You can never hide it. The problem that we have with the UPND and some other governments is because there are so many chances. People who just come, so they don't care when they get into government. But the training that our colleagues are getting, the Kasese Botas, the Professor Rupias, the Professor Chibangulas, the Faith Montalis, we've got a litany of leaders that have stuck with us all this time because they believe that we are going to make progress one day. A guy called one of the MCCs, Brian Chonya, was having a conversation with him just last evening, and he was telling you, President, get encouraged when you see a lot of attacks happening or coming to your way on social media, because it means now they are noticing you. Now, these are colleagues that have taken time to be with Harry Kalaba when he has been at his lowest and when he's getting there. All I can tell you, it's a question of time, and soon rather than later, we'll emerge triumphant.
22641. Hello, good morning. Good morning. What's your name?
This is HH. If you like. Formerly known as HH. Wakalaba mwabuga buti?
Kabo tuwadala mwabuga buti? Mwalia.
Following you on multiple platforms when you appear either on TV or on radio. But congratulations for you standing firm all this time around. But I want you to give your solution clearly without politics.
Yes, sir.
You know, there are only 3 things that are affecting us, the poor in Zambia. Now, one is the high cost of living. Without politics, what are your solutions to the high cost of living? Please elaborate. Me, I'm going to do this too, and this to lower the cost of living. Second one is the fuel cost. Fuel cost has been high. In UNIT, the way it was, MMD failed to take it back to UNIT. PF failed to take it back to 11 quarters the way it was in MMD. They took it up, even now in UPND. So what are your solutions? So that if you are going to try hard, you bring it at least the way it is now. Because I know if you win, it won't come back down. The third one is about electricity. What are your solutions to electricity? Are you going to improve the hydropower, or you are going to continue with these solar power plants this government has been trying to implement and try to bring in the country so that we have permanent solution for load shedding, or you go for nuclear? Only no politics, please. Can you give your solutions on these 3 key issues? That's all. Please don't tell no in MMD, in PF inflation was like this, we can't compare now, because those are just defensive issues. What are your solutions now? Because things in PF, they were expensive than the way they were in MMD.
Mr. HH, thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, do you want to respond?
Thank you very much. HH has raised very important points, and he says don't bring politics when you are answering. I hardly play politics on serious issues by HH. I'll start with your last question, where you've talked about the issue of which energy source do you think you rely on. I'll tell you, like I said earlier, that the Citizens First has identified nuclear energy as one of the sources that we'll rely on. Nuclear energy, right now, the capacity which we are trying to produce here in Chongwe is going to be giving us about 20,000 megawatts of power. Currently, ZESCO's capacity is about 3,400 megawatts. When you put all the sources of energy that they have, they only do 3,400. Now, with that nuclear energy, we'll be doing 20,000 megawatts. So it means Zambia's load shedding problems will go permanently. And that means that we are going to be exporting power to the DRC, which has got a lot of mines, Katanga province, and once we give them that power, we'll get the much required dollars to enable our country begin to get stable.
Sorry, did you say what was the total figure that you said? Was it 24,000?
For the nuclear power,
yeah,
20,000.
20,000. Not 2,000.
20,000.
20,000.
20,000 megawatts.
Okay. Was that the thinking, or this is now increasing?
No, that is the thinking, that we need to have 20,000 megawatts of power
but not
produced.
not what they had thought when the idea. Okay, sorry.
It's 20 years.
Okay,
it's 20,000.
Okay.
Then, if we get that, we are going to have enough power for export and enough power for use in this country. Then we have also said we also need to improve our hydropower stations. We need to move our hydropower stations from areas where they have told us that the rains are no longer happening, like in the southern corridor. We take them in the central corridor, where it is running heavily, Mukushi, Serenge, those areas. We begin building hydropower stations to enable our people not run short of electricity. So, Mr. HH, that is what we are going to work on. For solar, Solar can do only as much. It can, solar is also conditional. It depends on the weather for it to be effective. But these various sources of energy that you're talking about are going to be very effective. Then the other issue that you raised was the issue of petrol. You know, you talked about how are you going to help us with the issues of petrol. I've always said that petrol, if we built Indeni, and we have said Indeni has been shut. They said they were closing it for periodic maintenance. It has been shut permanently. Luchi, what we need to do now is to begin making Indeni become a refinery. We want to procure the hydrocarbon cracker to make Indeni a refinery, so that we stop pumping finished products into this country. Once you have a refinery, once you have Indeni which can store your fuel for some time, it means that you are able to absorb shocks, economic shocks that will come in the economy, because you have got your products stored. It will not be, it's like at a domestic level, Uchi. When you've bought your chickens, even if they increase chickens in the market, if you already bought 2 weeks ago and it's in the fridge, it will not affect you, whatever the market does, because you've already got your chickens already stored in the fridge. It is the same at national level. So CF and government will ensure that Indeni is recapitalized. We begin storing enough fuel in our country, so that we stop announcing every 2 weeks or every month. It must be every 6 months just to review the stocks, because a nation like Zambia should have stocks at least for 6 months. So our people's anxieties will be rested, because we'll have enough fuel done. The other issue is said, how will you reduce the cost of living? You know, the cost of living is intertwined. It is not something that you can say, I'm going to subsidize this, I'm going to subsidize this, I'm going to subsidize this. The cost of living is as a result of the production levels that you are doing and the effect that they produce in the economy. We have already said on agriculture what we will do. We are going to make sure that the cost of production is made cheap, so that the end product is also cheaper. Once people can begin buying meal cheaply, it means the cost of living is getting lower. But also we talked about industrialization and the industries that will create. When people begin getting money, they begin earning for their living. It means they have got the purchasing power. They can go to shops and buy. You know, once they're able to buy, it means that the cost of living is being fought. But also remember, if you have brought in the issues of Indeni, you are storing fuel. It means that the fuel prices are not just going to be rising every month. You already have for 6 months, so it means the cost of living in that manner is arrested. So it is various factors that we will be working on that will arrest the cost of living. And of course, it is the issues of energy, which electricity, as well as fuel. These two, we are very clear on how we will handle them. You handle these two, you have handled the cost of living.
How long would it take to build a nuclear power plant whose capacity is 20,000?
Look, it's not about how long it will be. A project, that's why we said, for the long term, the nuclear power plant project has to kick in. In the short term, we begin moving hydropower stations from the southern corridor to the northern corridor, where the rainfall pattern is not uninterrupted. But also, we look at hydropower stations like the one in Shuangandu, in Muchinga province. Those ones need to be upped from producing the 12 or 15 megawatts Shuangandu is or 20 megawatts they are producing. You up them by beginning to produce much more. The same with Msonda Falls in Wapula province. You up them so they begin producing much more. In that way, we are going to deal with the issues of electricity challenges.
The reason I ask is I know in Kenya they're looking at also nuclear power plant with the same capacity, and they're thinking by 2040 we should be able to have that, and that's a very long. That's a long way. And that's why I was asking, how long would it take?
How long it will take is not a problem. That's why you see we are
It's
delaying
long-term.
our own progress. It's a long-term project,
Okay.
but we are delaying our own term. And leaders should never be thinking in short term.
Yeah.
We should always be thinking long term, even when long gone back to the Lord. It is the effects that will remain for our children's children. People do plant bamboo trees not for them to benefit from them, but they leave them for generations to come and enjoy their fruits. So for us as well, we are looking at long-term solutions to eradicate the challenges that we've been having with electricity in this country. We have seen that these short fixes are not working. Here you put Kamasola, you launch, there you launch Kamasola factory. At the end of the day, it's not affecting the people. But one thing is for sure, we will not sell electricity when Zambians don't have it.
Okay. There was a conversation, I think it was sometime last year, that IDC was looking at signing a deal for a new petroleum refinery. Is that part of the refinery that you're talking about? Because what's the point of building another?
Look, how do you talk about building another refinery when you already have a refinery that you need to up? For us as Citizens First, we'll focus on Indeni first. Because Indeni has got the capacity. But it's just that it's got obsolete equipment. Our machine is going Indeni and Koda. So when our machine asuma, it will begin giving you the value for what it is. Before you even think of building something else, make use of what you have. Tetuwe muntu ukuli obutala. Ubutala tawula isusha. Nakabi wafundu batambo kwa nabumbi ubutala. Nomba wata wisushe uli. Ubole kulobo wala isusha. Chaka. So for us, we are systematic in what we do. Let Indeni first of all begin getting operational. Let it begin giving us value for money. You know, we are losing a lot of money. We're losing a lot of services as a result of pumping petrol and diesel straight from the ports of Beira and wherever. Because had Indeni been working, like Aunda was very thoughtful about it. He knew, Utila, when you have an industry like Indeni working, you are going to create jobs for the people there. Look, we find petroleum gas, Ruchi, we are buying it from Indeni. Bitumen, we are not importing it. Amani Nikarama roads, it was coming from Indeni. Why? Those are byproducts. Mavaslin, kerosene, you know, it was coming from. But number, you are importing even things you should not be importing as a country. And you are here telling us about the GDP now, they were posting it about 5 to 6% growth. How can you have economic growth of those figures when you're literally importing everything? Let's be serious.
In terms of, I'm curious, why not solar? You didn't mention solar as something that you can add up upon.
Solar,
you mentioned nuclear and hydro, but not solar.
No, I said solar it depends on the environment, on the weather, and so you don't want.
But so does rain as well.
Yeah, but you store that water and then you use the turbines to begin generating power. But for this, panels can only get so much and it's over. So it's not a very reliable source of energy. And for domestic consumption, it is only a selected few, privileged few that can use it. But like Ruchi, the rest will not afford it.
Okay. I want to come. Just one last question about the 20,000, because it's a big number. I think that's why everyone has latched on this. What's the financing? Have you thought about what the financing would look like? Who would finance a project like this?
Look, financing a project like that, I already told you that the Russian Federation, when we signed that agreement, they were ready to come into Zambia and begin financing that kind of a project. When I was foreign minister, I attended a summit, AU summit, head of state and government summit in Addis. And we were talking about the Great Inga Dam in the DRC Congo. Africa has been struggling with issues of electricity. And so when I came back and I said, look, if they will be creating the Great Inga Dam in the DRC Congo, why can't Zambia have its own capacity to produce such kind of power? And they agreed. They said, okay, let's go. So Musiska and I went to Russia and told them, look, why don't we have you, the Russians, do this kind of things for us? It will be able to supply a population of Comesa, population of Sadik, population of the Great Lakes region, because this is a great market for us. That project is not only for Zambia, it is for the region. And once we have regional projects like that, Zambia is now taking strides in economic direction and development, as opposed to always going to Mozambique, give us. So there was a bilateral agreement. There is a bilateral agreement. In fact, the Russians went further. They began even training our young guys who are good in sciences. They began going to Moscow to learn nuclear science and get qualified. So all that thing has come to a halt. We come into government, we need it. And I do not care. If it will finish after 10 years, long after I'm gone, it is okay. But the generations coming after we have left should be able to say they were leaders who thought of the future.
Okay, 3 last questions. Chileko asks about FISIP. Chileko says that he thinks, or she thinks, that it's an expensive subsidy. Maize production should be left to commercial farmers.
I think I told you already that the best way to subsidize maize is to subsidize production. And that is, and Chile was speaking the same language I'm speaking. Subsidize production, make fertilizer cheaper. And how do you make it cheaper? Begin producing fertilizer within here. And that's why Wakaunda had NCZ. Wakaunda understood that to make minimal affordable, NCZ needed to be proactive. Once the farmers get fertilizer cheaper, once they get the seed cheaper, it is easy for milling to become cheaper. And I think that is the area we need to look at. How do we make production cheap? And instead of subsidizing the end product, that is not the way you do it. You subsidize production, make production cheaper, and then the maize, the bag of milling will eventually be cheaper itself.
Okay. Someone that you should know very well, Frank Sichon, Citizens First, Nkushi North constituency.
Yes.
Yeah. He says, please ask him about debt swap for civil servants.
Okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Sichon. The debt swap for civil servants is on course. When we come into government, we have said that the civil servants are so stressed. It's because they have got a lot on their mind. Civil servants. And we have said we have to begin afresh. We are going to introduce debt swap. And remember, it is ourselves in 2021 who talked about debt swap. And I'm glad they began implementing it. But by UPND, they discarded it. When CF comes into government, Mr. Sichon, we are going to reintroduce debt swap. We want our civil servants to be absorbed out of those loans. Not only that, when we come into government, we have said civil servants who are making contributions, I know the civil service pension scheme, the public service pension scheme, requires that one has to serve for 20 years in the public service minimum, and then be 55 years for you to qualify for the public service pension scheme. Number, now 15 after serving for 15 years, you don't get the government contribution. I had a cousin, and it's sad, Luchi. I had a cousin who was working in ZAF. Died after serving 17 years. And he does not qualify because can after 20 years as a public service worker. That's when they can, government can give you your pension. There are others who have worked for 5 years. They pay pension now for 20 years. The Citizens First in government has decided, and we're happy to announce to you, we have decided as Citizens First that when we come in government, we are going to review that. We are still going to calculate the 20 years that you should have gotten. Instead of giving you for the 20 years, we'll just give you for the 5 years, and 2 years was saving, and the 10 years was saving, and the 13, and 17, and 19. Imagine Luchi was saving for 19 years old. Your family loses all that contribution that you've done. So we are going to review that. We'll make sure that civil servants begin getting their contribution from government, even if you save for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And then we have also said civil servants will stop getting from NAPSA those bits that they get when they retire. We want our civil servants to get a lump sum. A lump sum so that they can look after their welfare, because they get into destitution the moment they get out of those public services, our offices. We want to stop that and ensure that our civil servants are taken care of.
Okay. Just one last, this is not a question, but maybe just a point. This comes from a member of the media team for the UPND talking about Indeni. Says Indeni was never a refinery but a separator. It needed a desulfurizer, and President Harry Kalaba admits it's obsolete. Lastly, it was closed under PF, which Kalaba was part of. This is from somebody called Oliver Shala.
Oliver, I know Oliver is a good man. Thank you, Oliver. He's a very decent human being. I worked with his young, I think it's the young brother, Paul. Yeah, Paul, I worked with him, you know that, very decent human being as well. Oliver, thank you that you are following through, and look at the decency with which he's engaging the future president. That's how it ought to be. Shalala, my brother, yes, India was a separator, and that's why I talked about the hydrocarbon cracker. It's the hydrocarbon cracker which is going to make India a refinery, and I think I said that. Once it becomes a refinery, it becomes easy for us now to begin processing our own petrol and diesel in this country. To Anaka, I'm sure Oliver, you agree with me that talking about a new refinery when you've got obsolete equipment at Indeni, which you can easily replace. That's what Dr. Kaunda did, I think, in 1976 when he opened Indian. I think that's what he did. He just got the equipment from wherever, is it Iran or Iraq, where he got and brought it here in Indola. It's all about commitment of leadership. So when you come into government, we'll make Indian a refinery. All the components missing have to be put there instead of us building a new Indian somewhere else. That is how corruption is promoted. We want to take stock of what is already there before we begin thinking of building other things.
Okay. Harry Kalaba, President for the Citizens First, thank you very much for coming on the program. Anything lastly you want to say before I let you go?
Luchi, thank you very much for having me, and thank you, my colleagues. The provincial chairman for Lusaka, Mr. Chola, is here, and our colleague Sata Junior is also here. Thank you for accompanying me, colleagues. Mine is to tell our listeners and viewers from wherever they're listening to us from to say, please, the CF is here. We are putting up a robust campaign team to ensure that we reach you where you are. In case you want to reach us, I think he's got some numbers. Please, you can go ahead and announce the numbers of those that you want them to reach.
Good morning, viewers. I'm Chola. My numbers are 0977 36 6107 or 977 36 6107. For Lusaka, that is the number which you can communicate, and you'll be directed, given the other leaders, that you'll be where you be.
Thank you very much. But you can also call Marjorie Mutakwa on 0977 779133. 0977 779133. You can also call MCC Philemon Zulu on 0977 432211. 0977 432211. And Mr. Ntele, please get in touch. I've not forgotten. If you still have my number, please call me. Let's talk. We need you in the Citizens First. We push the agenda. God bless you.